Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This is the Raging Verbalist, and this is number 60. Ooh, how fast time flies. And with me, as always, in another less warm time zone. Just saying that. So if you look at her, just send some warm waves her way. Sandra, welcome. The ever lovely Sandra. How are you doing?
Hello, I am good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Just trying to keep you excited, keep you going. So, and by the way, today we're going to be talking about a topic which I've been working on over the years. Actually, usually just talking to clients about this, but to all of you who are on either Facebook Live or YouTube or watching this on a replay, you can go check it out and hopefully you'll get some insights. Raging Verbalist, by the way, is my channel in which I talk about a variety of things. I veer away from politics because I don't want to get all crazy. And some people have asked me, do I have opinions? I'm the Raging Verbalist. I got opinions about everything. But today we're going to talk about things that will help you in your business and your life and all of those things. So with that, by the way, and how this works is that Sandra really steps in for you, the audience, and she has questions. And if you have topics or things that you want me to comment about, make sure that you go to the Facebook page, which is the Position to Win book Facebook page. All right. So, Sandra, what do we have to kick this thing off?
Yeah, so I understand that you've been asking clients for years a big question every year. So, what is the origin of that?
Well, the big question came about because I had all of these clients that I was working with. And when you work with clients for any length of time, just like any relationship that exists, is that over time it just kind of gets like kind of into the same old, same old. And I would come up with things that I go, well, here's something that we should all be thinking about or talking about, or at least becoming aware of it. And around 20 years ago, I started coming up with what I called the big question. So but the real origins of the idea of why questions were so important is that the last time I ever saw Peter Drucker live, it was a series of lectures that he did. He talked about the importance of making sure that you ask really great questions and understanding how important questions were. And as he pointed out, oftentimes the questions are more important than the answers because most people don't really spend a lot of time coming up with questions. So I took that concept plus all of these clients and said, okay, I'm going to come up with a big question, something that's thought provoking, something that's going to make people go, wait a second, let me think about that. And then I'm going to just put that to them. And every year I would come up with a single one. Doesn't mean I don't write a lot of them down, but I would try to cull that. This year, actually, we have a little bit more than one, but that's the origin. And the importance of it is that you should be asking yourself for your career, for your life, for your own business sake, for your whatever it is, you should be asking yourself significant questions because that's how we challenge our preconceived notions and what we believe things, we think things are going to be one way when in fact they may be another way. So that is one of the things that I would suggest that you do is you start writing out bunches of questions. But today I'm going to share with you some insight that I normally only say to paying customers. So everybody out there can grab onto one of these, and hopefully, what they are is they push you ahead and move you along. So, what is the next question that you have, Sandra?
Yeah, why ask yourself a question or questions?
So one of the things that happens is that humans are reaction machines. And since we are reaction machines, we react to things all around us. In the case of Sandra today, winter storm warning, 40-mile-an-hour wind, it's going to be cold, it's a blizzard. And, and if you're in that mode, if you will, you're like, geez, when is this weather going to end? Now, those are like reactions to conditions around you. In your life, there's lots of things that we have. If you've ever had this expression happen to you, and which you said, if only I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently, or that aha moment or that breakthrough. And part of getting out of that total reactive, being pissed off that you missed out on things, is that you have to ask yourself better questions. And questions are provocative, because what they do is they take what humans are. We are reaction machines. If you don't believe that, say something provocative to somebody who you know, and see what the reaction is. And usually it will not be a happy reaction. And the reason why I say that is that you can say all kinds of things. Now, I don't necessarily want you to be mean to people, but you can ask questions and you will see their reaction. And I have found out that the way that things happen is that if they don't react, then that means it isn't important. It doesn't fit as a priority. Now, how do we invoke that for ourselves? Now, you could be a ponderous thinker. You could sit there, I guess, by a babbling brook, or, in Sandra's case, go outside in the freezing cold or something, or, mine, go put on some sunblock or something. But what I'm going to tell you is that you won't invoke that reaction and provoke those thoughts and actually get deeper inside of what is inside of your head. Remember, self-awareness is really a big factor in being able to effectively move forward in your life. So the question is that how do you do that? And how you do that is you ask yourself a significant question. You can ask yourself basic questions like, hey, I wonder what I'm going to have for lunch. Or you can say something more important, more grounded, and larger. So that's why there is a payoff, there's a value in asking yourself questions. And in fact, that's why, but you have to write them. Here's the thing. You have to write them out, and then you have to think about writing out what your answer is, because memory has a way of slipping and sliding and us making things up, because not only are we reaction machines, but we're cover your ass machines, and we love to just kind of smooth things over. So that's why you should ask yourself a question or a series of questions, and you should do it with regularity, because it will help you grow as an individual, and more importantly, make you much more proactive, because you've activated this reactive mechanism. So I know that's kind of a long-winded thing to say, and yes, I did take breaths in between there somewhere, but that's why it's important to do that, and that's why it's so important to know that you need to ask yourself questions on a regular basis, and there is a payoff. So Sandra, what's the next thing?
What is the first question for 2021?
So for all of my clients, my paying clients, I've given them not one, not two, but three, because we're in pretty unique times. So I'm going to actually just share today 2 questions and tease you on the third one, and we'll see if we had enough response. Maybe I'll dive into that one in a future session. But here's a question that's been hanging for a long time. I came up with it about 5, probably more like 7 years ago. And here's what it is. Here we go. I just want to make sure I read it correctly. So yes, I am reading it because I write these things down. By the way, I use a mechanism. I will show you a secret of the ages. Go buy a bunch of these. They're called 3x5 cards, right? And here's the best part, right? You want me to show you how it reboots? Hey, I just rebooted it. Bang. And it's amazing how you can get this stuff out of your head. Doesn't necessarily mean that I don't use technology, use it all the time. Okay, so here it is. Here's the big question that you should ask yourself, and that is, what happens to you, your business, your market, your industry, when or with gigabit internet speeds? So whatever internet speed you have, if you go to speed test and you run it on your computer, and you'll find out that you're in hundreds of megabits per second, maybe tens of megabits per second. Heavens forbid that you're not below at least a few megabits per second. But to see a gigabit is 1,000 megabits per second. Now, the reason why this is an important question, the reason why I've been asking this, is I came up with this question originally while I was sitting on a flight, and I was sitting at 37,000 feet in Southwest, and I said, wow, this airplane is full of lots of business travelers, and they're going to meet people, and they're meeting with them because that is the most effective way. By the way, no 2 ways about it. The most effective way to get something done is to be in the same place and time and have a meeting with somebody. When you have that same place and time, there is a certain rhythm that happens that cannot be replaced any other way. I'm just saying that out loud. However, lots of things can be done, as we've discovered because of COVID and being forced because of COVID, where we don't have to do that. However, there's limitations. And we've seen those limitations over the last, we're on number 60, and I'm going to say, Murphy, please don't listen to this, is that we have been through trials and tribulations, to say the least, with technology. And one of them was when we're trying to get the, Raging Verbalist set up and done, where we actually had serious problems. In fact, we have changed how we do Raging Verbalist. I don't think we've ever counted the number of times. It's now irrelevant, but we now have a methodology that works. And I can tell you that that is driven by a lot of times the internet speeds. And I'll be sitting here talking to you, and all of a sudden it pops up and it says your internet connection is unstable. Well, the bigger the pipe, so think about it, a gigabit, and it's bits, people. If you ever hear anybody say bytes, byte is 8 times faster. No, not your wireless streams. We're going to be 8 times faster than that. So we're going to be 8 gigabits. I don't think we're going to get there in a long time. But a gigabit potentially going to happen. Also, it's not symmetrical. It means that uploads and downloads are not the same speed. And you say, what does that matter? Well, all I can tell you is it matters a lot. After finishing the book, Remote Work for a Better World, I ended up getting invited because of not only that book, but the first book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize that position to win. Is that I was invited to speak to a group of entrepreneurs. That in and of itself is not a massive breakthrough for so many of you. But what was interesting is this was in Peru. Now, if you've got a map, you'll find out that even though I live relatively close, if I'm on Mars, I'm almost right there, but it's a long drive. I'm going to have to pack a lunch, and I'm going to have to have a little bedroll or something. And we did it via Zoom, and they went through a preparatory session with me to make sure that I had enough bandwidth. And here's what happened, which I'm pleased. Hopefully this continues. I've only done it once, but I'd like to see it again. Is that what happened is they had so many people who signed up, Peruvians who signed up for this event, that they had to limit it, because what they discovered is that they were going to exceed a certain number. And of course, if you're here sitting in the US or Europe or Canada or something like that, you go, well, okay, what's the big deal? But apparently, if we got too many people on this one Zoom meeting, we would affect the ability of the rest of Peru. Now, I was hoping they were going to do that so I could then add that to my record of accomplishments. I shut down Peru. It's maybe a little bit of an overstatement, but what the heck? I'm the Raging Verbalist. But the interesting thing is that size pipe is going to affect a lot of things. And that's why I asked the question, how will it affect you, your business, your market, your industry? How will it affect it? And when I ask this to people, they will often say, well, it doesn't really matter. Turns out it matters a lot. We take this stuff for granted. Yes, 5G is coming, gee whiz. But I'm telling you that the gigabit, ubiquitous, that's the right word, fancy word. Yes, I do have a word a day calendar. But ubiquitous gigabit internet is going to change a lot of things. And that's really important. And you need to think about that and think about how it affects you, and then think about how big a pipe you're going to need. I was talking to a coaching client who wants to do lots of Zoom calls. And I said, you will need to update and upgrade your internet access speed. Now, it does not necessarily mean that just because you have this higher speed, everything is really easy and done, or as the Brits say, tickety-boo. But what I'm going to tell you is the bigger the pipe, the better. Size matters in this case, and having a bigger pipe is better than not, and gigabit is just that. So the question is, how will it affect it? And the reason why I'm asking you that is not because you have to say, oh, I'm going to rush out and get it today, because you really can't. But the real question is, what will happen when it happens? Now, having said that, that means that you should really be thinking about an important thing, which is my book. And the question is that the book is, most businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 in the first 5 minutes. It takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. What I'm going to tell you right now is that we talk a lot about in the book about how to position yourself in the marketplace. When those higher speeds happen, when you're able to conquer these things, it will affect the positioning of who you are. So go check it out. Go to positiontowinbook.com. Also, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million to get the physical copy. You can get the electronic copy in Barnes & Noble Nook, Amazon Kindle, or Apple, and you can go do that. Also, you can, if you go to positiontowinbook.com, you will find on that website lots of other things that I do, along with my co-conspirator, co-author, and business partner, Gabe Batista, and you go check that out. Also, this is the time in which I say to you, please hit the like button. YouTube seems to like buttons. They have some kind of funky algorithm. Subscribe, and hey, keep checking this stuff out. Also, send us questions and topics that you want me to talk about. It doesn't mean that I will, but send it to, and Sandra checks this all the time on the Facebook page, Position to Win Book, and go check that out. So that is the first big question, and it is an oldie but a goodie, and I have yet to have a really good coherent answer, other than I have seen businesses that have utilized high speed to their advantage and made more money and been more successful. The question is, are you going to be early on in that trend, or are you going to be one of those that say, well, I knew it was coming, but I never took advantage of it. So maybe now's the time to do it. All right, Sandra, what is the next question?
Right back to you. What's the second question for 2021?
Well, and this one I dance back and forth on, but for this call, I think, because remember, I have three. We've got one down, two to go, but we're only going to do two for the freebies, okay? And if you're pissed off, you want to leave a bad comment, go to somebody else's site and leave a bad comment. I mean, it's just as cathartic. But here's what the second one is what will you do to make technology, we could say Zoom, but it's a lot more than Zoom, by the way, because I meet a lot of people who say Zoom is what they're worried about, but it's a lot more than that. What will you do to make technology work for you in 2021? And the real question is are you actually utilizing technology the way you should? Are you getting the most effectiveness out of that? And all I can tell you is that if you're not thinking about that, then I think you're making an absolute big mistake, because what you really want to do and what you really have to figure out is, how in the world are you going to become technologically not only literate, but actually use it as an advantage, because it is a tool. Most people understand the value of the tools, but what they don't understand is how to develop the techniques and use the techniques. So the point of this question for all of you for 2021 is, make sure that whatever tool that you're going to use, Zoom, or you're going to use Google, Office Suite, or Microsoft 360, or whatever you're going to use, whatever those things, Evernote, which I use every day, make sure that you get better and better and better at it, because there is virtually no documentation on this stuff, and you have to build your own plan. When I was at a conference years ago at a Macworld, now long gone, Microsoft had a booth where they're talking about Microsoft Office. And I talked to the product manager for Microsoft Word. And I said, why do you guys, now understand, I have been using Microsoft Word. I don't use it much anymore, but I was a user from the Mac version, which is where it started. It started on the Mac, not on the PC, for all of you PC bigots out there. And I bought it when it was version 1.05. That was considered the first really stable version. And I kept giving, Bill and the boys money for years. And I said to him, this is really interesting, because how do you deal with the fact that you keep adding more features and more things and more features? And what percentage of the feature set are used by any user? And he gave me an interesting answer, and it was like between 3 and 5%. Now, he said, sadly, most people never take any of the time to explore, but more importantly, at that time, to read the documentation. Today, there's no documentation. So you need to decide what you're going to do with it. And that this question asks you something very simple. Will you in fact take the time and build off of this leverage that you can have at your fingertips? We live in the most remarkable time ever, but the amount of bitching and complaining and moaning is like through the roof. So learn how to use this stuff. How are you going to use this technology to your advantage, especially in everything you're going to do? Surprisingly, people don't think this way and they don't spend much time. So what you need to do is you need to figure out how to use technology to your advantage and make a commitment. So here's my plan. So I'm not just giving you the question, I'll give you a little bit of an answer, but you have to answer for yourself. Is last year I watched between 3 and 5 YouTube videos. No, they weren't cats and they weren't other weird, stupid stuff, you know. What they were is specifically curated to learn about how to use things like Zoom, how to use things like Evernote, how to use things like Google Docs, how to use these other tools. And every day I would do that. Well, now I've upped that for 21 and I'm now watching between 7 and 11. I know it's, like a gambling thing, but what I'm doing is I'm learning how to use these functions and make them more functional and more capable than ever before. If you do that, what I can tell you is the answer to that question, though I'm just posing the questions, is that by using that technology to the best of your ability, is that you will see that in spite of everything that's going around and going on, that you in fact will become more successful than you thought possible. And that is a critical part. So the second question for the year, which is the second one we're going to talk about today, is what will you do to make technology work for you? Most of the time, we do not have a clue about how to make technology work for us. So what will you do? That's my question. What will you do to make technology work? All right, Sandra, what is the next question?
What should I do with the answers that I'm getting?
So part of this exercise, if you follow along with me, is you take the question and then you start writing out answers. Now, there isn't a singular right answer. There's answers that reflect your reaction to the question and your specific ability to actualize and do something with it. So what you should do once you start getting these answers is that say to yourself, how do I turn this into something that's actionable? So there's a 3-step test. Number 1 is how do I make sure that it's relevant to my situation and circumstance? Number 2, what is my comfort level with this or my discomfort level? Hopefully these make it discomfortable. This is like a little rock in the shoe. It's supposed to wake you up. If you're totally comfortable and you're sitting back in a hammock, then I'm not doing my job. So relevant and the level of discomfort of this situation. And number 3 is how do I take action based upon this? Because if you take action, if you go do something with this, if you go make it happen and change this, what you'll find is once again, you're going to experience a fuller, richer life. You're going to have more success. And more importantly, you're not going to be like so many people who go, well, I'm running out of things to watch on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, on and on and on and on. This is your life, no matter what's going on in the world. And you decide what you're going to do. In fact, we end up getting what we deserve because we accept whatever we accept. So what my answer to that question is what do you do with the answers? Is now you find a way to make them relevant, to find out if you are feeling discomfort, which then motivates you, propels you, gives you that impetus to go do something. And finally, how do I actually build an action plan and go do something with them? So if you do those things, when we wind the clock forward, is you'll come back and say, wow, this really projected me forward. This really changed what I was thinking, what I was going to do. Do that. And again, the whole point of the Raging Verbalist is to shake you by the lapels, metaphorically, and say, go out there and become a better, bigger you. All right. We have just a little bit of time left. What is our final question?
Are you optimistic about 2021?
I talk to, on average, probably about 50 to 100 people a week, and not always the same people. And I find it interesting how quickly we can talk ourselves into thinking that we're going to, pause for whatever. If in fact you're letting the current circumstance that we're all in, and I'm not a minimizer. I'm not sitting here, hang on, let me go get my rose colored glasses on and tell you how everything is wonderful and everything is cool. Yeah, there's lots of challenges, but I'm going to tell you that this is the only year you've got. Today is the only day you've got. So I'm going to be as optimistic as I can be. I'm not going to be some, Pollyanna, thinking about how everything is perfect if I just kind of chanted the right incantations. I think it's incantations. I think carnation is the milk, is the condensed milk, guys. Anyway, but I think it came from contented cows, so maybe that's what I was thinking about, contented cows. But anyway, whatever you're going to be chanting, but I'm going to tell you right now is that I would rather be optimistic and look for a way to make positive progress in my life than sit there and just say that the world is just crap and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. I've been hearing that for a long time from a lot of people. Are there challenges? Absolutely. Are there things that I want to see differently? Yes. Part of being an entrepreneur is finding out ways to make it work in whatever environment that you're in. So my answer would be that I am optimistic about 21. Why wouldn't I be? 21 is great if you're playing blackjack. If you got 21, the thing you know is that you can't lose, and the chances of you winning are very, very high. So with that, I'm going to say, yes, I'm optimistic. And what I would say to all of you is to be as optimistic as you can be within reason. Don't kid yourself about what things are going on. But more importantly, make sure that you take the time, ask yourself these big questions, and move forward in the direction that is to your benefit. There is a payoff by living life to its fullest. And the question is are you doing that, or are you letting life dictate the limitations that you have? And with that, I'm going to just thank Sandra for being on here. Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks for having me.
And I want to thank all of you who have stuck with me all the way through here, because we're rapidly approaching the end of Raging Verbalist number 60. Once again, a dramatic plea. Please, please, please subscribe, join, do all those things that you know you need to do. But more importantly, interact with us. Come back and say on the Facebook page, hey, what about this or what about that? Most importantly, ask yourself this very most important fundamental question. Am I living the life that I choose? If you do that, you can answer that one honestly. And a lot of you will say, oh, I don't like the answer I got from that one. Then the only thing you can do is realize that you're in charge and that you need to change. So live that life, because that is the most fundamental question that you can ask yourself. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week on the Raging Verbalist.